Karen Lewis and Ross Baraka for being here. Absolutely fantastic.
And the Working Alliance. Thank you.
And the Working Alliance.
Working Families.
In reference to what Karen said about having courage, I just want to make a comment that I was on the way here, I heard on NPR this story about how Andrew Cuomo's pushing of the state law in New York is affecting the city of New York and the millions and millions they may have to pay for the rent or for charter schools in New York. And it just makes me reflect on the fact that we need to hold these politicians accountable. We need to have the courage, even when it's an Obama or an Andrew Cuomo, a typical Democrat who we think supposedly is on our side, when they are doing things that are undermining public education, which I agree with Ross Baraka is the primary threat to democracy in our country, we need to call them out and we need to let them know you don't automatically get my vote because you're a Democrat or because you're black or for whatever other reason. If you are doing things that are undermining public education, you will be called to account for that. I think that's really, really important.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Brandon Rippey of the Newark Education Workers Caucus. This question is directly for Karen. Karen, first of all, we want to thank you for the strike which you and the core caucus and CTU carried out. I don't know if the rest of you know what magnitude that was in the labor movement. That was really a call for labor unions to wake up and take the battle to the big capitalist class, as you mentioned earlier. But what are the weaknesses that you still face? Because we still know you're under tremendous attack. Where do you still have weaknesses in your union, and what do you still need to do to really build the movement and be able to go on the offensive against them?
That's right. So I think the major weakness is thinking that a contract can solve all your problems. All right? I want people to understand that. If you think a contract is going to solve all your problems, then you're not thinking as an organizer. The issue becomes, how do we work together as parents, students, teachers, and the community at large to fight for, I'm just going to now say, democracy. Okay? So the issues are that you cannot sit on the sidelines thinking one thing is going to solve all of our problems. The contract was the beginning. The fight for a new contract was the beginning. So the weaknesses lie where we assume that somebody else is going to do the work. That's right. All right? Okay, all right, so just call the union, right? And I keep trying to explain to people the union is everybody in the building. The union isn't a few people working downtown, right? That's not the union. The union is in the building. So again, I think the weaknesses become when we think that something else or someone else is going to solve our problems, just like one elected official. Not if we don't build a progressive infrastructure throughout the entire city, state, country. That's how it has to work. And that means that we're always working. And guess what? And when people get tired and have to come out, that means we have our bench. You guys, we need to have a bench. Right? All right? Because people need to take a rest. Everybody can't do this work all the time on 10. All right?
So I think that's the reason why we should always have a higher. That we need to. There's a difference between mobilizing people and organizing people. And I think everybody comes to the table with different self-interest. And once their interests are met, then they leave. Right? And so sometimes we allow people to come into organizing with us, and because we just need the numbers. And when they get what they want, then they leave. And you're trying to figure out what happened to them. Once they come in the circle, it's our job then to organize them, educate them, lift them up to another level so they begin to understand that it's not about this specific thing, it's about an overarching kind of unity. We're here because of this larger piece, and we're fighting to constantly get more and more and more and more, not this simple, some people just might be fighting, so they can go home earlier, right? Some people might be fighting so they can get a stipend, right? Or the raise that they wanted all these years. And they deserve all those things, right? But that's not the end of it. And it's our job to make people understand there's a larger struggle and organize the small struggles to the larger struggle.
Question.
Yeah, this is to Karen Lewis. You just talked about the need to build a progressive infrastructure to stop the sacking, the assault, the privatization of public education here in Newark, Chicago, New Orleans, around the country. But to have a solid infrastructure, you got to have a solid base. That seems to be the problem, that we're trying to build this movement on the Democratic Party, who, as you use the term, that's part of the ruling class. And they are deeply committed to destroying public education, from Barack Obama on down to Mario Cuomo and his son. So how do we build, that seems the contradiction in your movement, and that we're working with the Democratic Party, which is committed to destroying public education.
But my question to you now is, I have to disagree on a broader level, and that is, yeah, basically the usual thing. How do we do this? We don't have a base because the Democratic Party is committed to these same things, right? I mean, right now, in terms of public education policy, you're absolutely right. The Democratic Party, the Republican Party. The problem is that in the United States, we don't have multi-party systems where we can make broad coalitions with other parties. So until if we want to mobilize outside of either the Democratic or Republican Party, then the issue becomes, how do we bring up a true Labor Party or Working People's Party or whatever else, what other kinds of parties? So I mean, like, our system is not set up. Again, who are the winners and losers and what are the rules of the game? Our system isn't even set up to go somewhere else and to have a base. So I mean, I understand what you're saying, brother, and it would be good if we had something there. So at this moment in time, that's not there. So to leave the Democratic Party is also to lose more voice. Again, when our caucus took over the union, what we wanted to do initially was to move the union in a different direction. We weren't interested in running the union. We weren't interested in having a political discussion around it. We just wanted to move our union in a different direction. What we found is we couldn't do it from outside. We actually had to take over and move it towards a more democratic process. So it's easy to stand outside and throw rocks. That's easy. Anybody can do that. It's much harder to get in and move these ruling class votes. I mean, and part of the problem is the way elections work now. It's all about how much money you can raise and blah, blah, blah. But what we're seeing is even people that don't raise as much money are still winning, and they're making a difference. So we can't poo-poo that. Yet. I mean, some people are. I mean, I've seen things all over the business. If Karen Lewis runs, she should not run as a Democrat. I'm a Democrat. Okay, I am a Democrat, and I'm not apologizing for being a Democrat. Am I interested in handing a progressive infrastructure over to these other folks, the old machine politicians? No, of course not. Exactly. If we build the progressive infrastructure, we move them out of the way. But until we can change the laws so that third and fourth and fifth part, I think we should have like 30 parties. Exactly. I just, you know, it would be nice if we could have independent Democrats, or the independent Republicans, or whatever. I think the Tea Party should have their own party too. I think that the problem is that the way the system is right now, which we know is rigged, financial system, everything. All the systems are quite rigged.
Yes, they are.
To just sit here and say, okay, we're not going to do the Democrat. Well, okay, fine. Now what? I mean, I don't have. I mean, I'm not smart enough, clearly, because I don't have the answers for that. That'll make sense. So, but I am a Democrat, but I think we need to make Democrats behave. Exactly.
I just want to think to that, right? So ultimately, we're trying to build a broad-based movement, right? And that's important. We have to build a broad-based movement, and you can't isolate people. People come to the table with different, at different levels, right? There are people that are progressive in the Democratic Party. I don't think the Democratic Party got Barack Obama to become the president of the United States. I think that a progressive coalition in America came together and elected the first African-American president twice, right? So not just the Democratic Party, you had independents, you had progressives, some people that weren't part of no party at all, you had labor unions, you had all kinds of people come together saying, we're going to push America further to the left to make it more democratic, more anti-racist, as a broad united front. That's what happened. That is the base that exists, not just in the larger country, but exists in these cities that we live in. We have not been able to harness that base because we've been fighting each other locally, but we unite nationally around larger issues, but we cannot unite locally because we have these kind of fights like this that say, you're a Democrat and you're this party, so we can't talk, which is ridiculous to me, right? We need to have a broad-based movement that's inclusive as many people as we can get from as many, that's what a united front is. You have to build a united front. When you build a united front, then you take the folks to another level. So I don't think that we don't have a base. The base was proven nationally. You had a president that won the second time when he was outspent. As a matter of fact, more white American men voted for his opponent than ever voted in history in this country, and they lost. They lost because women, progressives, labor, Democrats, everybody came together. LGBT community came together and said no to racism, no to this backward thinking, and organized a broad-based movement to make Barack Obama the president. Doesn't mean you have to agree with everything he does, but the fact of the matter is that's what happened. And we have to harness that energy on a local level.